Are we attached to our possessions? Is that who we become? Are you your social status? Well, I'm this or I'm that. You know, I'm not one of those people. Are you your occupation? You know, friends of ours, the ones I was talking about, they were telling us about parties they'd go back east, you know, when they were younger, and people would introduce themselves with their occupation. Again, this stuff isn't bad if it's in balance, right? Or are you your education? I mean, that's what's pounded into us in society. You go out there and get a good education. So now do we judge each other by how many letters we got behind our name? You know, you got letters behind your name, but you don't leave home without them. You know, it becomes who you are. Again, they're not bad, but if you can't release them or see them for what they really are, what they've turned into and what they become is their false identities created in our minds because we forgot who we are. Because you don't know how to describe yourself anything different, so you're almost forced to pick one of the other ones. And they prevent us from seeing things with our innocent perception. If you're not willing to release them, they'll keep you from knowing the real you. Because you won't be able to look beyond that illusion that was created. So have you ever questioned yourself, too, about what you know? You know, what you know and why you know what you think you know? Have you ever stopped and looked at all the stuff that you've learned and why you know it and you know, what you think you know? Like, we look at stuff like the Income Tax Act. What do you know about the Income Tax Act? Why are you paying taxes? You know, so where that comes is this, years ago, really just before the First World War, they started doing stuff, trying to figure out how we as humans worked and how we thought, individually and in collective. What they found was that 87% of us create their beliefs based on the opinions of others, while only 13% use deductive reasoning. Now, we all have the ability to use deductive reasoning, but because we've been brought up, we'll just accept the opinions of others. Like, really ask yourself, okay, why do you pay income tax? And when you really get to the bottom of that, you know, have you sat down there and you've read this whole act and you truly understand it? What if it said in the first 3 pages or the first line that you didn't have to? Wouldn't you feel like sort of sad right about now? So that's the thing, is a lot of us are paying income tax. I know why I first started. I never even, you know, I used to do a lot of commercial diving. I was out in the ocean and I was young. I didn't even worry about the game like this until I started getting into construction, and my partner was 20 years my senior. You know, and after the first year of construction, he goes, son, we're going to have to file our income tax. I went, oh, okay. I just listened to somebody else. And so we can be aware of this is what they know about us. Then that may motivate us to say, well, let's hold it. If this is how we may, and I don't think we do this out of because we're incompetent or anything. I think we do it because we're just trusting human beings. You know, we were raised to trust our government. That's sort of getting a little heavy right now. But so don't look at it as anything bad, but look at this other part about using deductive reasoning. We'll show you that. So we got to look at that, and you can take that concept into all your belief circles and ask yourself, what created your belief circles? I mean, like I said, this goes way beyond taxes. Say here's a cross-section of all of us. Inside each of us is the real person, who we really are. But what we have wrapped around us is all our belief circles, and we need to look at where they come from. You know, we look at like taxes, rights, politics, money, religion, status. It's really funny here when you look at it. What are the 3 things we were taught to never talk about at Christmas or Thanksgiving or mixed gatherings, or especially in front of the public, right? Taxes, politics, and religion. What a great thing to teach people from birth, so that we never sit down and start looking at things together, keep us separate. Well, we're not going to go into all these tonight. We're probably going to go into that belief circle and look at, you know, have you examine your belief circle around taxes. But I just wanted to show that, and we looked at these belief circles, how are they held together? Are they held together because you've actually gone and studied certain facts yourself, or were they just the opinions of others that you took on? And were the opinions created through deception? We're going to look at how deception, what we think we see, is not what we're actually seeing. How about culture? Some of your belief circles are probably brought through with culture. And again, belief circles aren't bad or anything like that if they don't hurt anybody else. How about apathy, though? Apathy is one thing that now is really, when you start looking at how this system is decayed and beat people up. How many people know somebody who's about 40, 45 that they just gave up? It's just too much hassle trying to beat the system off, right? They're 40, they're just waiting to die. Apathy is something that is really going. But a lot of your belief circles, believe it or not, are built and encased in fear, because they know how powerful that fear is. And look at how many people here would be very willing to have CCRA phone them tomorrow. How many in fear of CCRA, right? How many people here are too afraid to admit that, that they're afraid of them? See, fear and deception are the 2 thickest layers. Fear is a reality. You know, for the first year and a half, we had like thousands of facts, and we could spin this stuff deep as you want to go, and we realized people still weren't seeing it because what weren't they seeing? Weren't they seeing the facts? But we realized they couldn't see through the fear. So the fear is a reality, and we don't diminish it or anything, but I think it's important to look at yourself and say how much of your beliefs are held together by fear or your actions are restricted by fear. Again, belief circles, we all need them and they're all part of us, but they're not bad. You need to look at them though. Do they create separation? Because that's what they've tried to do, is keep us all separate. Tell us never to talk about these things in a group, right? Keep your own, that's why they go after people separately. So we make it a big shame. What if we all stood up and said, let's get this game over and call it for what it is? So again, as you start exploring those, as time goes on, you may come to some, recreate your belief circles. Because they're constantly, how many people here have the same beliefs they had when they were a kid? So they're constantly changing. Okay, so be willing to allow that to happen. What we're going to look at here, though, today is you, the real you. Who, regardless of your belief circles, we're at the point that we're all the same. The real you, you're a human being with inalienable rights and freedoms. Bottom line, the truth becomes very simple to express. You have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and property. And they're all basically, you can't have one without the other. When you contemplate the oneness of this, you start realizing you can't have life and be a human being without the liberty and the property, or have property without the freedom and the life to enjoy it. So they're all, you cannot disconnect these. I like looking at these, though, from the other perspective, okay, because they're just, you can spend the rest of your life contemplating these yourself. But if we look at it from the other, say we're the elite, and we had a meeting, and we were saying, okay, we know these people out there all have human rights, but we want to enslave them. How are we going to do it? Well, let's look at what they have. They have the right to life. Should we acknowledge their right to life? Well, logically, sure. What good's a dead slave, right? Okay, so I mean, we can do. How about liberty? Should we let our slaves be free? Give them the freedom to move around. Absolutely. What good's a slave strapped against the wall? And I'll think about it too. If we let our slaves move around, we can charge them for everything that they do. The amount of money we can make as they move around. And by the way, too, what's the best type of slave to have? One that thinks he's free, right? He'll work harder. Okay, so you look at a little bit of property. Okay, what is your absolute right to property? What is that property? I like looking at it real simple. Because we know our labor is our property. If you have an absolute right to your property, how does that affect in this big picture here? So if you look at property, it's funny because sometimes we separate property based on its value. But what's the difference between, say, this pen or a pair of shoes or $1 million house? If you own it, you own it, you own it, and all the laws of property still apply to it. So I like using the parallel between shoes and our cars, something in mid-range there. And you look at it as how many people here have ever been given a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt? How many? Okay, how many people here have ever been given a ticket for not having their shoelaces done up? Yeah, one, yeah, right. Country's not that bad yet. But what's the logic behind it? How are we sold on one, and why don't we question it? Where'd they get the right to force you to wear a seatbelt in your own car? Yet they can't force you to tie your shoes up. Well, the logic is if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you get in an accident, you're going to cost the system a lot of money, and so it's for the betterment. Same thing applies to shoelaces. If you step on your shoelace, you crack your head on the thing, we got to pick you up with an ambulance, take you to the hospital, years of rehabilitation. So I think we should need a law for shoelaces, right? Same logic if it applies. So what did they do? How did they get that authority to give you, to infringe on your rights in relation to your car? If this is your car, it's totally yours. And as long as you don't use it to violate anybody else's rights or cause imminent threat of damage, what harm have you done? Well, when you understand that your absolute right to property, regardless what's in there, how many people here have done this to their car? Registered it? What did you do when you do that? How many people here have registered their shoes? And when you start looking at property, forget the value, look at it for what it is, it's all the same. When you register your car, and I don't know the legal semantics of it, but let's say what you've done, though, is you split the title. Let's just say you gave them the legal title, just a higher title, and you retained equity title. And you did this voluntarily because you were going to get a benefit. Yeah, I know you don't see the benefit in there, but technically there's always a benefit in there. So we register, we get a benefit we may not even know about. What that's done is you've given them a higher title to your vehicle, telling you that if you want this benefit, this is how you have to drive the car. And that's how many things have you registered? That's how they split title, giving them authority over our property. A friend of mine had a boat. Actually, He's an educator up north. He had a boat for many years. And just before he came to take the educator's course, he got some papers and thing, you know,